I noticed that a lot of people who are anti-ICE don't have such a luxury as having the father that I do. And so I asked him if he would come on and talk to my friends about his point of view when it comes to ICE and law enforcement. And he has a very unique point of view.
Do you like that name? The Sojourner versus the State? Peace
We're
off.
going to we're going to talk about that.
Okay. Actually. Okay, so we're entitling this The Sojourner versus the State. Peace officers, ICE, and sanctuary cities. Welcome, Thomas Leland. Can you give us a little brief intro to who you are, what God has had you do these past years of your life, up until now?
We have moved to Southwest Indiana, which is a drastic difference than living in Cook County, Illinois. While in Cook County, Illinois, I had an opportunity to serve in the Chicago Police Department. Did that for 23 years. I was hired when President Clinton was in office.
That's crazy.
I retired when Rahm Emanuel was mayor of the city of Chicago. Law enforcement is important to various administrations. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 was signed by President Clinton. It was called the Clinton Crime Bill. So law enforcement has been nationally important across various administrations.
The older I get, I am just a carbon copy of you and mom in so many ways. So when people talk to me about law enforcement, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Like, we all know that law enforcement is so important, and these are real people, and they're not perfect people. But justice is biblical, and all these kind of things. So I think my worldview obviously has been shaped because of your worldview, and also like our biblical worldview. So as far as you being a police officer, do you go by police officer, or is there like another term you prefer?
It was early in my career that I understood the significance of being called peace officers. In the academy, when you boil down what our task is, it is to maintain the peace or restore the peace. Haymarket Monument, that's at the Chicago Police Headquarters now. The inscription underneath it is nothing more than, in the name of the people of Illinois, I command peace. And that's what police officers do.
Like, more so than maybe ever before, we are so unhinged as a society from what police officers do. We now typically only see police officers online when it's something negative. So as far as when you were a police officer or a peace officer, what was your interaction, if any, with ICE agents? Or like how, when you were a police officer, the 23 years, how did ICE interact with police officers, or was ICE even around? Because I feel like it's almost recently that I even knew that ICE was a federal agency.
It is important to understand that there are different branches, different agencies, and overall, the coordination between them is what's so critical. As a sworn officer in the state of Illinois and being hired by the city of Chicago, I enforced city ordinances, which are laws written by the city, and state statutes, Illinois state statutes, which are written by the legislators in Illinois. So I did not enforce any federal laws or statutes, but we did cooperate as law enforcement officers. I remember maybe twice in my whole 23-year career that I had people from another agency at the scene that I was a part of.
Wow.
I cannot honestly tell you that I have never had interaction with ICE, because my relationship with ICE would be, I'm on the street and I pull somebody over, sticker on their license plate is old. So I stop them, I talk to them, I need your driver's license insurance. They don't have their driver's license with them, for instance. So I take them to the station because I cannot complete this stop. In the course of that interaction, I find out that there is what I would refer to as a warrant. There's a computer, I name check you, and the computer pops up, you need to contact this agency. So I would call them up and say, I have this person, they're with me, I'm writing them tickets, they're going to be out of here in 40 minutes. They'll say, fine, thank you for the notification. End of story. I can't think of a specific incident, but I know I've had interactions like that.
Wow.
And it would have been an agency like ICE that says, we want to talk to this person.
There's a warrant.
And I would just refer to it as a warrant, because that's how we would refer to it in Chicago.
It pops up on your screen. It pops up like you put in someone's name and it's like Rebecca Leland. Oh, look, like this federal agency has a warrant or has a hit or something on her.
Right.
And you would like click it, you call them. And then, so that's all built into the system.
Right. But on another example might be that my encounter wasn't a traffic stop, but it was an arrest. And I bring somebody in, a case that we're charging with domestic battery. We cannot bond somebody out of the station, at least when I was working on a domestic battery charge. They had to go to court. So we had to set up a court hearing in the morning. We'd ship them to Cook County Jail. They would have the hearing. Now, if that same message popped up and I called that agency and said, hey, I have this person, they're here for domestic battery, now it's going to change their decision making. They're going to say, well, he will be in your custody until tomorrow afternoon. You know what? We are going to send somebody out. Thanks for the notification. It didn't change my paperwork, other than I might write down that I made a notification to this telephone number, to this person. I'm done with my paperwork. It did not affect anything on my side. So that's how come I can't tell you that I've never interacted with them, but I don't know of instance for sure that I did.
Sure. But it's so helpful to know, like, I never knew that police officers even would communicate, or there was even like a structure. I never knew there was a structure for that. And I guess that leads into like the question of when sanctuary cities, this thing called a sanctuary city, when those policies were implemented, what were the most significant operational changes that you noticed?
You could sense that, especially when I worked the near west side, that area seemed to be affected by our relationship with the community.
Yes.
That included those that were undocumented, immigrants, kind of living there, but they're not breaking my laws. Otherwise, I would lock them up, or I'd write them a ticket, or whatever I would enforce. But I think there were a lot of people that were worried about immigration laws. And because I'm law enforcement, they treated me that way.
I think it's very interesting nowadays. Information is coming out about how many millions were deported in previous presidencies versus the Trump presidency. And it's just shocking, the number of immigrants who have been deported. And those presidencies, it was celebrated that they were deported, versus now it is absolutely torn apart in this administration, them deporting. So what is your opinion on sanctuary cities? And how do you think it's changed the game of policing and immigration, even just viewing it as an outsider now, not even on the force?
When I started looking at all this information, now that I'm retired and trying to figure out how how do I need to think about this? How do I need to call my legislators and either support something or oppose something?
Wait, you mean
I
that
read
that's
an
how we're
article.
supposed to do things? If we disagree with something that's going on, we're not just supposed to like run around and like scream and whistle. We're supposed to call our legislators.
Well, that's my way of doing it because when even in Chicago, enforcing the law, we would have agitators or we would have excited people, activists, whatever we want to call them, that would be saying, the police are doing too much. The police are not doing this. They should be doing that. And they're doing this and they shouldn't be. They should be doing something else. Or there's something they should be doing and they're not doing it. And ultimately, my solution has always been call your legislator, change the law, and your law officers, your law enforcement officers will change what they do. Whatever the law said is what we were supposed to enforce across the board,
Yep.
Uniformly to everybody,
Yep.
regardless of who I stop,
Right.
regardless of who I engaged with, whoever that encounter included, I needed to be the same across the board with everybody. And so the same way with federal law enforcement, change the law. And then the law enforcers will change their strategy, change their behavior, change their actions. So to me, that's where the answer is in the legislation. Are those law enforcement breaking the law? Unfortunately, there are some people that are hired into these jobs and they don't follow the law. And rightfully so, they should be indicted, they should be penalized, they should be removed from that office, they should be incarcerated if they need to be, but it shouldn't be based on an individual's presumptions that, well, they didn't like what they did. It should be based on, did they follow the law or did they not follow the law? I personally think that some of the effects of sanctuary, and this was just my perception, was that uh, there were residents in the community that I enforced in that did not report crimes because they were fearful that they would be subject to the law. Whether it was right or not, I don't know. I mean, did they come across the border and not go to a hearing? I, I don't enforce that, but they were, I think, hesitant to report a domestic battery to me because they didn't have confidence in law enforcement. And some of that has to do with they're coming from countries that have a different law enforcement pattern. Some of that is coming from dialogue and rhetoric that they hear in the news and they hear from family and friends. Unfortunately, they hear it from legislators that I think are twisted perspectives. One of the biggest results of what of the sanctuary type policy is that the sanctuary jurisdictions are not cooperating with ICE. Immigration detainers. And that's their notice that, hey, I want to talk to this person. I need this person in custody. And normally, and this is why prior administrations were able to more peacefully deport so many people because they would come and pick them up when they were in custody. That transfer is safer, less risky for the officers involved, for the target, and for the community.
But whenever sanctuary cities went into place, policing went silent on ICE. So are you saying like that's potentially why we're seeing what we never saw with past administrations of ICE entering into homes, ICE entering into Walmart, ICE entering into Home Depot, because there is no longer a safe route working with law enforcement to detain these certain individuals?
Well, that's half of it. Half of it is the notification side. The other half is many of the jurisdictions that are proclaiming sanctuary, they also tend to not hold people in custody when they commit an offense. So it shortens the amount of time that an agency like ICE could come and pick them up anyway. But if they've not notified, if they don't notify ICE, hey, we have the guy that you're looking for, we have the girl that has this immigration detainer, and that immigration detainer doesn't mean that this guy killed somebody, that this guy chopped somebody's toes off. This could be they didn't go to a court hearing and the judge says they're delinquent. So it's a matter of completing that process that has already started. ICE refers to it online. When I look up their website, they refer to it at-large arrest or at-large apprehensions. And that's where Minneapolis, that's where Chicago, that's where all this conflict is there areas where the head of ICE, Tom Holman, knows that these guys are there. His agency is going to pick them up. Used to be when Tom Holman used to work for President Obama, he did the same thing. But Chicago notified him and said, we have this guy in custody. So he would send an agent or two, pick the person up, pick maybe 3 of them up from a jail, from a prison, wherever they are, take them into custody, process them through whatever they have them for, take them back to their immigration judge or deport them, whatever they were going to do. But they did it through a peaceful, safe, practical means. Cost less agents on the street. All the way around, it was great. But now we have jurisdictions that are aggravating that. And what I hear people screaming is that we don't want ICE on the street. I kind of agree with that. I don't want them on the street.
ICE doesn't want to be on the street. Yes.
But if they're not in the jail, I need them in the street because I need these people out. And it aggravates the situation, not just in the peaceful transfer of that targeted subject, but when ICE walks in, if they're on the street, they're doing these at-large arrests or apprehensions, and they interact with somebody else that's not the target, but is also wanted by immigration process, they swoop them up too.
So everyone is so mad right now.
Some kids, some grandma, whatever it is, generations, and they're not the target, but they're with the target. And they wouldn't have been with the target if they were transferred in jail or in police custody in some other agency. So that it's aggravating everything, but the answer isn't like right now, I have U.S. Congress people, members of the U.S. Congress are saying we are going to shut down the government in order to keep ICE from being paid. And I'm thinking, you guys write the laws. Why don't you change the laws so ICE enforces those new laws?
No, that's too logical. That's too logical.
I have a senator I have in mind. He is from Illinois, and he happens to be retiring. He's not going to run anymore. But since I was working in Chicago in the police department, he has spent his whole career in Congress, immigration reform, immigration reform, immigration reform, zero, zip, zilch. None of it has happened. The reform is rewrite the law. Don't change the way you enforce it. Like, have these police do this, have these agents do that. Change the law, and they will change their policy. They will change their behavior. They will change their actions. The answer is not defund them, but that's what's going to be coming up now at the end of this month. The House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives, have done their appropriations. They did all 12 of them. They're on their way over to the Senate. And I've heard nothing but a lot of senators saying, we are going to shut down the government. They don't say that. They say, we're not going to fund HHS or ICD or RGD or whatever it is. And what they're saying is that we would rather shut down the government than to go along with what the House of Representatives has already approved.
We would rather do it because we planned it that way. I think that's what I'm not hearing from anyone else. That's why I think it's so interesting. These protests and these things that are happening, it's not just happening organically. Like, I continually, and you continually, we're all getting text messages saying you have to start, go after ICE. So planned. And I think it's so interesting that it's planned down to the state. Like, the governor knows what's happening. And he is okay with police not communicating with ICE. But because that happened, it trickles down to where now there's all these riots. And now people are literally losing their lives. Why? Not because ICE agents are doing their jobs. People are losing their lives because their governors and their mayors are deciding not to communicate in a way that has worked and that is legal for the past year now. And I think that is I'll say, demonic plans that are happening and that are being put in place. And just this next shutdown and this idea of we're going to shut down because of ICE, they planned that and they planted that. And I think it's out of ignorance that people are so willingly going along with the narrative. Like, how many Christians are you seeing? They're like, okay, this final shooting, this recent shooting of Alex Peretti. They're like, okay, this now we can't stand. Now we're not with the government anymore. And you're like, whoa. Like, can we look at it as an individual issue? Like you said, police officers, this is shocking to a lot of people. I think they're human. And they're imperfect, right? And it's crazy how if, Janice in your cubicle next to you, if she misprints something, it's not like, Janice, you're fired and the whole company is awful and we shouldn't work anymore. It's like, no, just because of one person, it doesn't mean that the entirety of what's going on is wrong. But people aren't talking about it that way. I think people are just eating up the narratives that they're being fed, even though the narratives that they're being fed are not truthful. And it's not based on facts. And it's not based on literally the way that the United States is supposed to be run, right? Like, when it comes to legislation and when it comes to voting and when it comes to how laws are written. But I think it might have to do with more ignorance than anything, and willful ignorance. Because I think, your whole, I think I should vote people out and things like that, that just comes from you understanding the system and how the system works, and that you're not going to go run around and picket and yell in people's faces. Or blow whistles. I think that's it's insane and interesting what's happening. So chaotic. It's so scarily chaotic. Thank you for coming on and being a part of this podcast. I hope to have you on again where we can have better microphones, better video, and just chat about all things political, but also biblical. And thank you for sharing your point of view.
Well, thanks for having me. Great time.